Hello, everyone. I'm North Hempstead Town Supervisor Judy Bosworth. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, we have embarked on creating a virtual exercise series for our senior residents. We partnered with our Project Independence fitness instructors to host these virtual classes, which will allow you to stay fit and healthy by participating from the safety of your home. Please enjoy.
Welcome. Here's our mat yoga class. So I'm starting on the floor. Sitting on the floor is a practice into itself, and as it's difficult to get up and down from the floor, which is really the hardest, but if you're going to sit any time on the floor, you're going to start to feel the tightness and the aches and pains. So we're going to work on that. But first, we'll start with the basic of yoga, just starting with our breathing. Following your breath, being the witness, the observer of what your breath is doing. Following your exhalation through to its as much of a completion as you can, as the belly draws in and up, emptying your lungs as much as possible. The inhale is slowly filling your lungs like a balloon, filling your chest. The lungs are similar to that, but we'll mostly just focus on the exhalations as your diaphragm forces as much air out as you can. I say empty the lungs, but the lungs are never really emptied. And just let your eyes close, from top to bottom. So I talked about the breath because the breath is going to relax the nervous system, relax the muscles, which will make sitting on the floor just a bit easier. And we're going to start with a little chant. I don't do a lot of chanting in this class. We're just going to chant the sound Om, which creates a vibration into the body. We're going to bring our hands to prayer. Inhale for Om. Exhale, I'm going to bring your hands down the side of your hips. Inhale, just let your eyes crack open, gently taking the light in. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the crossing of my legs. You're going to find that you're going to feel a lot easier for you to sit on with one leg crossed in first. Let's take the arms up, but that will help you if you can sit evenly. The tendency is we're going to be tighter on one side, and it's going to make sitting on the floor very challenging. So I'm taking my arms up. It kind of like distracts my awareness of how much the difficulty in my hips is. And I'm going to lower the arms down. This time I'm going to take my arms around and up, coming back up. It's the same way as same position, but it's coming up a different way. We're going to alternate that as we're going to start to move. movement and breath. So try to hold into which is probably for most people going to be the uncomfortable side. So it's almost like you need to spend a little bit more time there in that where we find things difficult, and lower the arms down. And then you'll start to get more comfortable with the tighter side, and it makes the whole sitting easier. Let's take the arms up. I'm going to start to bend from side to side. So I'm grounding the hip. The hip wants to come up. You want to ground your hips down and stretch the side of the body from the hip through my fingers. And I'm going to come up, and I'm going to do twice on each side. And I'm grounding my opposite hip as I reach to the side. Inhale and exhale. One more time. Inhale, and I'm going to lower my arms back down. Also, is going to help is to try to position your spine. As you may see, a lot of people will start to round and slump. Pressing the lower back in, drawing your ears back over the shoulders. Remember, it takes time to do this. Practice. Let's take the arms around and up, and we're going to twist. I'm going to turn and twist twice to each side. Just moving my spine through the basic movements. Side bending, and this is rotation. Returning back down. So it's rotation. Next thing we're going to work on is going to be bending the spine forward and back. There's basically the basic movements of the spine. So I'm coming into hands and knees, setting up for the cat and cow, just to get the spine to move. Right? We're going to work on hips today. So I'm going to come into the cow pose. I inhale, I drop my belly, I lift my shoulders, and exhale, I'm rounding into what's called the cat pose. We're going to go through that a couple of times. Inhale and exhale. Just warming up the spine. Just going through the basic movements. Let me go through that one more time. And I'm going to come to this, I'm going to call this my table pose. And I'm going to come into a little bit of exercise for my back and my spine by taking my right leg back and lifting the leg up. The hip wants to come up with it. You want to keep my hip down at the same level as the one that's with the knee down. And just pausing here. And I'm going to lower the knee down right where it was. I'm going to take the other leg. So this will strengthen the hips and the lower back. So we're going to do some movements to get the spine warmed up a little more by movement and breath, relaxing the body, moving the body. Doing this one more time, making it just a little bit more difficult. I'm going to draw my belly and I take the right leg back up. I'm going to float the left arm up alongside my ears. You'll see the limbs want to drop down. Try to keep them lifted up, moving your leg and arm in opposite direction. And breathing. This is another subtle movement for the spine. I'm trying to stretch my arm and leg in opposite directions, so maybe the spine will lengthen a little bit. Lowering down, switching, coming to the other side. Just relaxing the breath. lowering down, going back into the cat and cow, just to, but adding a couple little more movements to it. I inhale, cow, exhale, rounding into the cat, and I'm going to sit my hips back into what's called the child's pose. Some people may not find this very comfortable, so at the end I'll show you ways if you need to make this a little more comfortable. Coming up into the cow, rounding into cat, but this time I'm going to lift up into an inverted V shape, which is called the downward dog. I'm reaching my hands forward, almost like you may see I'm trying to lift the heels of the hands up. Not that you have to, but the weight should be in your fingers. The thighs pressed back, stretching the spine. I'm going to walk my feet forward, my hands back. You'll see it becomes easier when I do this. I'm in this halfway into a forward fold. I want my back flat, my hips pressed back, my head reaches away, lengthening the back. And then I'm going to maybe come in maybe a little bit deeper. As I lengthen the spine, I can start to come deeper into this. I'm going to bring my hands to the hips. Inhale. I'm going to come all the way up to stand. I had briefly mentioned the alignment of the spine, that the lower back wants to round, the head wants to push forward. This is not the best place for your body, so we're going to correct that. So starting with the feet, my legs press down. I press my thighs back, my legs firm. Immediately I start to, my lower back comes into a better position. I want a little curve in the lower back. Drawing my ears back so they're over the shoulders. And just breathe. I'll call this my attention pose. And this is an excellent place because this is the position of the spine that we want to find throughout our yoga and throughout our day. So we're going to start to move a little bit. Let's take the arms around and up like we did before, and around and down. Taking the arms straight up. This time I bring the arms a little bit back, and then I take the arms up and lowering down. We're going to put that together with the forward fold. So I'm going to take my arms around and up, and then I'm going to reach out. My arms reach away. My hips press back, lengthening the spine, bringing my hands down onto my shins. Going as far as in as I can. I'm going to come up halfway, and then exhale. I'm stretching the spine, stretching the back of the legs. Eventually, I can get my hands onto the floor. We'll get there a little later. But now let's just take the arms around and up and lowering back down to attention. I'm going to turn to the side, setting up for a bunch of standing poses. We're going to do one pose one side, then switch, go to the other, and then another pose, and going back and forth with some stretches in between. So I'm going to take a wide step out with both legs. How wide is, everybody is different. The wider, the harder it's going to be. Bring my hands to the hips, and I breathe. My legs are firm. My spine is in a straight line, and I'm going to come to the first pose, which is going to be warrior two. So I'm going to turn both feet. I'm going to turn my back foot. See how I just angled my back foot a little bit towards the upper corner. I turn the front leg out 90 degrees. I take the arms out to the side. I bend my front knee. And I look at the fingers, and I'm breathing calmly, as collectively, as easily as I can. So if this is too hard, what you would do is you would heel toe the back foot in a little bit more. If it's too easy, you go back. Finding your posture. After all, this is your practice. Making it what you want it to be, what you need, which is maybe a little more difficult of a place to find. As we change every day, everything is changing. I'm coming up, And I'm going to turn. See, my back foot turns to the front corner. My front foot turns out 90 degrees. I'm back in warrior two. I'm breathing. A calm, relaxed breath will send signals through the nervous system to every part of the body to let relax, and maybe you can come a little bit deeper. Your arms may start to feel a little bit fatigued, but you can lower your hands to the hips, which I'm going to do now anyway. I'm straightening the front leg. I parallel my feet, my hands come to the hips. As we're going to do a bunch of forward folds with different positions for the arms. I want to draw my lower back in. I'm lengthening the side of my waist. As I fold forward, I bring my hands down to the ground with my legs wider apart. It's kind of like it's easier to come towards the ground. I lower down my shoulders. My upper back is very active, so my shoulders come away from the ears. And I'm breathing. My legs are working. My upper back is working. Where can you relax? Or where do you hold tension that you don't need to? Maybe you're scrunching your face up. Maybe you're scrunching your toes up. Find those places that we don't need to be engaged. Legs and upper back, that's mostly it. I'm going to come up halfway, bring my hands to the hips. I lift my shoulders to come up, back where we come from. We're going to go again, side to side, through a couple more postures. I'm going to turn back to the first side. Again, I angle my back foot in, my front leg up, coming through warrior two. I hinge from the hips, bringing my arm on top of the leg. Other arm can be up to the ceiling. I like it alongside my ear. It could also be on your hip. In case you want to lengthen the top side of the body. A little bit more intense than the warrior two, which is okay as long as you can breathe comfortably, because that's what we're looking to calm the nervous system down. I firm my legs to come back up, and I'm going to turn to the second side. Side angle, second side. Just listen to the sound of your breath. Focusing on your breath. Using my legs, I come back to center. Bring my hands to the hips. Inhaling and exhale. Coming into another forward fold. So we're going to take the arms out to the side. I'm going to interlock my fingers behind my back. I lengthen the spine. See how I'm reaching my hands to the floor. So I arch my spine slightly, and then I'm going to fold forward. My head comes down, my arms come up and over. My legs are working. See how I'm lengthening my neck by lifting the shoulders up. And then just breathe. Inhale to come up, back to center. Next is the triangle pose. There's actually two triangle poses. We'll get into that maybe next time. The revolved triangle, getting both of them. So I'm going to turn again to the first side. My feet pivot to the side. I take my arms up, my legs remain straight. I'm going to hinge at the hip. See, my hip comes back, greasing the space in here. As I reach out, I bring my hand down, oh, just under the knee. The other arm comes up towards the ceiling. Each exhale, I'm going to try to reach a little bit deeper. About 5 breaths, I come back up. On the inhale, exhale, go to the second side. Again, I deepen the hip and I reach out and down. Spending a little less time talking, a little less sound. Listen to the breath. Firm the legs, and inhale, I come up, and I'm coming back into the center. Another wide leg forward fold. Yes, we're doing a lot of this, stretching the inner thighs, the back of the legs. When we stretch, we want to relax, calm the breath. This next one, we're going to lower the hands down the outside of the leg. I still lengthen my spine up. I slide my hands down the outside of the leg. Maybe that just comes to the knees. Or maybe you can reach all the way down and grab the big toes, which I will do. I'm taking my first 2 fingers on the inside, thumb around the outside. I inhale, come up. Exhale, the pose. 5 breaths. I inhale, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I come out, put my hands up, come up. Inhale, exhale. I'm going to bring my feet towards each other. Sometimes you can have a practice where it's just counting. The purpose of it is to still the nervous system when you reduce things down to less and less distractions. Just breathing, and you become much calmer. I'm going to set up for a balance. We're going to come to tree pose. So I shift the weight, take the leg up, and tree. 2 breaths. 3, 4, 5. I'm going to take my arms up higher and 5 more breaths. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Trying to slow the breath down. You may have noticed my breath is slowing. You may have taken more breaths, you may have taken less. Trying to slow the breath down. Second side. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Going deeper. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Out of the pose. I'm just going to come to stand, bring my hands to the side. And see if you can just close your eyes for a moment. Listen to the breath. Keep talking about the breathing. The ancient yogis measured their lifetime in amount of breaths. They felt they only had so many breaths, so if they slowed their breath down, they would live longer. So with your eyes open, I'm going to turn to step towards the front of the mat. We're going to do a couple of more poses standing, this time lunges, and then then we'll start to work at sitting down. So I'm going to step back. I make my feet a little bit wider if you want to make it a little more stable. I'm going to bend my front knee so it's over the ankle. My back heel lifts up. I take my arms up. Again, here we go. That's inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to reach out with my hands. My hips, my legs go back the opposite direction to come into a lower lunge. I'm going to gently lower the back knee down. I'm going to bring my hands onto the front hip. And I'm just breathing here. You can keep your hands here, or you can take the arms up. And we're breathing. We're stretching the front of the back leg. I'm just going to spend a little bit more time here. I'm going to bring my hands back onto my front leg. You can bring your hands onto the floor. You can even lower your elbows to the floor. As long as you can breathe comfortably, you're welcome to go deeper. We're stretching maybe one of the, for many people, it tends to be one of the tightest places in the hips, the front of the leg. I'm going to work my way out, bring my hands down, I lift the back knee up, and I step forward. My feet are very wide. I bring my hands to the hips and back up. Second side, I'm going to step back with the other leg, bending the front knee, bending the back knee a little bit. I take the arms up into a high lunge. The back leg thigh is starting to stretch here. So I'm slowly coming in deeper into that tight place. This is maybe caused by sitting too much, becoming sedentary, sitting in a chair with the legs bent, and you're tightening up the front of the hip. Coming down, I'm going to bring my hands down. See, my leg is reaching back, my head forward. I just gently lower the knee down, bringing my hands onto the front leg. And breathing. You can take the arms up if you want. So this right here, this is the tight spot. This is what compresses when we're sitting down. So I should say that we should try to stand up more, or spend less time sitting anyway. So I'm going to come out with my hands down. I come right back up. So my feet are fairly wide, almost as wide as the mat is. We're gonna start to work to sit back down. So I'm gonna even make my feet wider. And I'm gonna take my arms up. I'm gonna reach my arms out, my hips back, bringing my hands forward. So my hands are fairly under my shoulders, and I'm gonna start to walk my feet back. My hands come down as I'm coming down into the downward dog that we did before. I'm going to lower my knees down, and I'm going to come back into child's pose. So you notice that my ankles are pretty close to the ground, and I can bring my hips back onto the heels. So this is not exactly the most comfortable place for everybody. So I'm going to show you, if you have a blanket or a towel, you can do things with the blanket and towel. I'm going to bring the blanket first underneath my hips here. So now I'm raising my hips. It makes this a little bit more comfortable. Some people, they can't point their toes, so the ankles are gonna hurt. So I'm just gonna roll the blanket up like this, and I'm gonna put it underneath my ankles. So a towel, a blanket will really help to sit on the floor. So I'm going to come up, and I'm going to come to sit. Well, I'll leave the blanket here because we're going to do more with the blanket. So I'm just going to stretch my legs out. So I'm going to fold the blanket back more like the way I got it, because it's going to be a little easier for other things that we're going to do with the blanket. Your blanket, blocks, that stuff can help a lot with sitting on the floor. Remember I said sitting in a chair will create problems. Just like this is starting to compress my front of my thigh. I'm sitting in this is my legs stretched out. This is the attention pose, like we were standing. This is only the seated version. My lower back doesn't round. I want to draw my ears back over the shoulders. I bring my hands back a little bit, and I lift my chest without lifting the chin. I'm going to come into some stretches for the legs. So I'm going to take my right foot into my inner left thigh. And I'm turning towards my front leg, and I'm going to walk my hands out. This takes time. You gotta be patient with sitting on the floor. You may feel it a lot at first, but with practice and with props like blankets to make it easier. So I'm using one. You can use two. I mean, I've had people, and I've tried it too, using 3 blankets. The higher you bring the hips, the easier it's going to be. Come up, back to sit. So keep the blanket here. We're going to come in. You're welcome to even do it in this posture, or any pose if it's more comfortable to sit on the blanket. I'm going to switch, and I'm going to come to the second side, and I'm going to walk my hands out. So I'm stretching the back of the leg. The opposite leg that's bent, I'm stretching the inner thigh. It takes practice and patience, or a practice of patience. Trying to breathe when things are difficult, when things are uncomfortable. The better you can breathe, the more you're going to relax, because what's happening, you're going to start to tighten up, and it's going to make it more difficult to sit. Which is natural. The body is trying to protect itself, so it starts to tighten up. I'm going to come back to I'm going to take the right leg. This time I'm going to step my right leg over the left. My hip is starting to lift up. I want to try to keep the hip down. That's the challenge. And then I'm going to turn. I'm going to take my left arm and wrap it around the outside of the right leg. Coming into another twist. And I'm coming back, and I'm going to come to center, and I'm going to come to the second side. So I'm going to take my left leg over the right, grounding that left hip down. I'm going to take my right arm around the left leg and twisting. You may feel a lot of sensation in the outside of the leg. You have to breathe through that. That's where the tightness is really comes from and makes it very difficult to sit on the floor. Coming back to center, stretching the legs out, back into this attention pose. So I'm going to demonstrate with the blanket on this next pose. This can be very challenging. All this can be very challenging if you're not used to sitting on the floor. I'm going to put my hips on the blanket, and I'm going to bend my legs, bringing the bottoms of the feet together. I'm sitting here. The tendency is here. You'll see a lot of times you're going to want to start round. I have to work to keep the spine level. Stretching the inner thighs. We just did the outer thighs. Just breathe. Just calmly, softly breathing. You can start to add on to this, make this more challenging eventually. When it starts to get easier, you can just start hinging forward. See, I'm not rounding forward, I'm hinging at my hips. Coming into this called the bound angle pose. Yeah, spending a little extra time in this pose. The inner thighs can be very tight, weak and tight. I'm going to come up. I'm going to take this a little deeper. I'm going to bring my legs up, taking them out to the side, and I stretch the legs out. My feet are pointing up. The tendency, they want to flop out. Keep the legs active. I lift the chest. I'm going to slide my hands down the outside of the leg. Maybe you can grab your feet or your big toes. It's really where you feel comfortable. And then you maybe take it to what is called like the bearable edge of discomfort. That's where the stretch occurs. Too far, and you start to stress yourself or even create an injury. So coming into where it's just where you just start to feel that edge. And then when you breathe, the breath will relax the nervous system and you'll come in maybe a little deeper. Oh, I can grab my big toes. I'm trying to lengthen the spine. Just practicing these poses regularly. I'm going to come up and I'm going to bring my legs in slowly, just using my arms to help them, and going to cross my legs, just like we did at the beginning. Sitting on the blanket will help. Again, practicing. This is the traditional yoga pose, just coming to sit and breathe and meditate. It's called the easy seated posture, which is kind of funny because it's not, for most people, this is not going to be easy. Let's switch. I'm going to switch the crossing of my legs again. You're going to, you'll find which side is a little bit more of a difficulty. And that's what we need to work. It's information that's telling us, where the body maybe has a little bit of difficulties, where it's a little bit tight. I'm going to come to lie on the back. I'll put my blanket away. If the floor is hard, you could actually lay it over your blanket. I'm just going to come to lie down on my back. So this is probably the place where the spine is at its best, because the floor is creating a straight line. My legs are a little bit sloppy, so I'm going to activate my legs. It's not quite ready for Shavasana, but I'm going to take my right leg in. And I'm going to take my left leg in. Stretching a little bit into the lower back. I'm going to bring my left foot down. I'm going to take my right ankle over the left knee. This is a great place to help the hips to sit down. I'm going to make this deeper. I'm going to bring my left leg into my chest. But I don't want the right knee. What you're going to find is the other knee is going to come in like this. You want the knee to stay away, but you don't really want to use your hands. You want to develop the muscles deep in your leg to rotate. So I'm grabbing the back of my left leg, but you want to come deeper. You can grab the shin of the left leg. My right leg is active, just because this can be an awkward place for the knee, which could create a problem for the knee. That's why I don't want you pushing on the knee. I'm going to switch. I'll lower my left foot down, and I'm going to cross my left ankle over the right knee. Again, I'm going to, keeping my left knee away, I take the right leg slowly in. Just breathing comfortably, you're calming the nervous system so that you're telling the muscles in the hip, just let go. It's safe to be here. You can just relax, let go. Maybe then come in deeper. And if you'll find like one side is tighter than the other, then spend a little bit more time on that side. Release. I'm going to come one more somewhat active pose. I'm just going to come into into a gentle bridge. To stretch the top of the hips again. That pose is great, but again, I'm tightening one of the tightest parts of the hips. The hip is called the hip flexors. I'm just going to gently lower down. I'm going to bring both knees back into my chest, doing a little gentle stretching. I know I didn't do a lot of, I'll do more of those poses if I was doing a lot of back bending or bridge pose. I'm going to just hold my right leg in, and I'm going to come into another twist. I'm going to hook my foot on the back of my left knee. As I bring my right knee to the floor, my right hip comes up. I'm going to turn my shoulder and reach back towards the ground. I'm going to come up, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So like I said, coming up and down is the harder part. So I'm twisting to the other side. You have to learn to use your legs or have somebody there to help you. Do not try to grab a piece of furniture to help yourself up as you can. As people have done, they pulled the furniture down on top of them. Just take things step by step. Eventually you can come from practicing on the chair to part of the practice on the floor. I'm coming up and coming into my resting pose. Just let go of everything and just hold.